Chapter 2: Surviving at Home. Surviving a disaster at home is easier than surviving anywhere else. Not only does your home shelter you, thus satisfying needs, but you have everything you own all in one place. You cannot carry as much survival gear with you when you are away from home as you will have when you are safe on your turf. Nevertheless, survival at home is still challenging and requires adequate preparation and training. While you may have everything you own in one place, there's a good chance you won't have some things you are used to. In most disasters, the normal infrastructure is severely damaged, eliminating services regularly taken for granted, such as electrical power and fresh water. Additionally, supply chains are compromised, so running to the corner store to buy something you need is out of the question. To properly prepare a disaster survival kit for your home, you must first consider the worst disaster you will likely face. There is no sense in preparing for a situation you aren't likely to see, like a tsunami in the desert, nor is there much sense in preparing for anything less than the worst-case scenario. If you prepare for the worst situation possible in your life, you will have everything you need on hand to survive a lesser calamity. For the sake of this book, we're going to assume that the worst-case situation is a hurricane or tornado that disrupts electrical power, water supplies, communications, and supply chains. Due to the lack of supplies, there is a breakdown in society, and looting and violence abound. The next thing to figure out is the time that will pass before life resumes. A hurricane may pass through an area in 24 hours, but it could also be days or weeks before life returns to its stable state. It takes time to restore essential services when they are disrupted. How your home helps you. Besides the shelter your home provides you, there are other advantages of being caught at home in a disaster. More than anything, it provides your family with a safe place to congregate and support one another. Being in familiar surroundings helps maintain a semblance of normalcy, even though the situation may be anything but normal. Nevertheless, those creature comforts can give your family confidence to overcome the situation. Don't underestimate the value of making your family feel comfortable and feeling that things are at least somewhat normal. The hardest part of surviving any disaster is the psychological strain. Comfortable people will be better prepared to confront the problems associated with a disaster and its aftermath. Take a group that waited out a long, difficult storm at home and throw them into unfamiliar surroundings, and their chances of survival will be drastically reduced. With the right preparation, your home can do much more for you than provide shelter. While all homes are limited in storage space, a house or apartment can pack away much more food and supplies than you could carry on your back. Of course, the more you prepare your home for disasters, the better off you will be when, and if, a disaster strikes. For example, if you have stockpiled food and water, then, when a disaster takes away your water service, you'll at least have a week's worth of water to drink. You might not have enough to last you forever, but you'll be much better off than those that haven't stored a single bottle. What to do when the lights go out? Since most disasters result in the loss of essential services, we must assume that whatever disaster strikes your family, it will leave you without electrical service, fresh water from the tap, sewer service, and food from the grocery store. The more you can do beforehand to prepare for the loss of these services, the better off you'll be. You might think electricity is important for the television set in your computer, but we use electricity for many more critical things like heating and cooling, refrigeration, and of course lighting. In addition, city water services and a private well on your property depend upon electrical power to supply your family with water. So, to fully prepare your home, it is necessary to develop a plan for dealing with the loss of electricity and water. The first part of this is providing heat in the home. Modern heating is either electrical or gas. Even in cases where gas is used, the controls are electric. Luckily, humans heated their homes for centuries before the invention of modern central systems, and we can return to those methods, like fireplaces and wood-burning stoves. While not as convenient as central heating, a good old-fashioned fire will heat a home. If installing one of these heat sources in your home is impossible, a portable kerosene heater will do. The second need is water. The average person needs 4 liters, a gallon, of water daily in moderate and 8 liters, 2 gallons, in hot temperatures. This quantity doesn't account for what is needed for personal hygiene, which can be several liters/gallons per day. Drinking water can be stockpiled. However, even the best stockpile will eventually give out. Therefore, it's also a good idea to have a means of filtering water. That way, available water supplies from nearby streams, lakes, and rainwater can be filtered and used for drinking water. Be sure to make a note of what nearby water supplies are available. Refrigeration is the third necessity that is lost when electrical power is out. There are 2 ways to respond to this: use the food you have in the refrigerator ASAP or provide alternative refrigeration. The latter can be accomplished through evaporative cooling. The beer cooler is a means of keeping food via evaporative cooling. This simple yet ancient device consists of 2 clay pots nested inside each other. The space between them is filled with sand, and the sand is wet. Since the clay of the pots is porous, the water in the sand will wick towards the outside of the outer pot, where it can evaporate, cooling the entire year, including its contents. Covering the zayer with a wet cloth helps the process by adding additional cooling and insulating the contents from the ambient temperature. What you need to stock. Besides learning survival skills, the biggest part of preparing to face a disaster is stockpiling the necessary supplies for your disaster kit. Building a kit is a prolonged process for most people as they don't have the money to buy everything at once. That's okay, just as long as you start the journey before it's too late. The sooner you start, the sooner you will be well stocked if disaster strikes. While a home survival kit could contain anything and everything, from obvious options like food and water to entertainment like puzzles and books, some items are important for any situation. We're going to concentrate on these absolute essentials. Water. Since you can only survive 3 days without it, you'll need a lot of water to survive. The problem with storing water is that it takes up a lot of space. Nobody has successfully invented instant or dehydrated water, so you must store big bottles of it and keep it away from direct sunlight to prevent algae growth. For liters, 1 gallon, of purified water per person per day is a minimum for drinking and cooking, which means a week's supply is 7 gallons per person in your household. Additional cleaning water would be needed to maintain personal hygiene. Water purification. Since storing sufficient water is difficult, it's a good idea to have some means of purifying it. The easiest is a mechanical filter. There are some excellent filters on the market designed specifically for survival situations. These are much more robust filters than the commonplace pitchers and faucet attachments used for filtering minerals out of a home water supply. A survival filter is specifically designed to remove biohazards, such as bacteria. A 2.0 micron filter will remove almost all bacteria, protozoa, and other parasites from the water. For greater security, a 0.2 micron filter will remove viruses as well. Removing chemical contaminants like lead and copper requires distilling the water or using a complex process like reverse osmosis. At this level of filtration, you can take pretty much any water that is not chemically contaminated and make it safe to drink. Food. You will need enough food to see your family through the disaster and its aftermath. Since you won't be able to count on refrigeration, choose dried, cured, pickled, or canned foods. You can even buy survival food, pre-packed in 20 liters, 5-gallon, plastic buckets, providing everything you need to feed your family for several days. This is a convenient but rather expensive way to go. Spending a lot of money on specialized survival food isn't necessary. A trip through any grocery store will offer a wide variety of foods packaged in a way that makes them perfect for survival needs. Develop a menu based upon what you can readily find, and pack enough of it away to get your family through the expected period of disaster recovery. Besides canning, the packaging used for store-bought foods isn't intended for long-term food storage. Stored foods will last for many years. How long they last depend a lot on how they are packaged. Means of cooking. If your electricity is out, there's a good chance that your normal means of food preparation will be out as well. Even if you have a gas stove, you can't count on it because the pumping station for the gas may no longer be operating. Propane is the only stove type likely to work in a crisis. Nevertheless, this doesn't mean that you are without means of cooking your food. A little ingenuity will make it possible for you to cook. The easiest secondary means of cooking food for most people is on a barbecue grill. Since most families have one of these, they make a great secondary means of cooking in a pinch. Just keep enough of a stock of fuel for the grill to get you through a crisis. In addition to cooking on the grill, you can always resort to old-fashioned cooking over an open fire. Humanity has done this for centuries with excellent results. While it may not be as easy or consistent as cooking on a stove, roasting meat and veggies over an open fire are not all that hard with a little practice. Fire starters. If you have to cook over an open fire, you'll need to have ample means of starting a fire on hand. Starting a wood fire is best done in stages. A fire starter is used first. Matches and butane lighters work well. The matches or lighter are used to start your kindling, any material that will easily burn on the fire. Kindling is defined as something that can start smoking from a single spark. There are some readily available fire starters on the market. These are essentially different types of well-prepared kindling. They all work fairly well, but you can make your own easily. Cotton balls soaked in petroleum jelly are one of the easiest fire starters to work with. Once burning, the kindling is used to start tinder burning. Tinder is stuck that is under an inch in diameter. It helps to have broken, ragged ends to the sticks because it is much easier to get those ends burning than it is to get the bark to light. The fuel will produce enough of a flame to put split logs on the fire as fuel. Candles and oil-burning lamps. Since we're assuming electric power will be out, you will need an alternate light source. There are several solutions, but the best is to go old-fashioned with candles and oil-burning lamps. This store doesn't cost a lot and doesn't require electricity to operate. When selecting candles, look for ones in a glass jar, such as a canning jar, or wide enough candles so the wax won't drip. Taper candles are elegant but typically waste more wax dripping down the sides of the candle onto the table than they burn. You want the candles to burn slowly and steadily for as long as possible, not instantly becoming a puddle of wax. The nice thing about oil-burning lamps is that they can be used with almost any type of oil. The oil sold for them is designed to burn smoke-free and not produce a bad odor. In many cases, it's scented, but in an emergency, any lightweight oil can be used, from cooking oil to motor oil. The only thing to be careful of is that some of these oils will produce soot, which could stain the ceiling of your home. Fuel. Another item that becomes impossible to find in times of disaster is fuel. A vehicle without fuel is essentially worthless, so keeping some in your stockpile is a good idea. Yet, gasoline does not store well and cannot be kept for a long period. Additives can extend the normal life of fuel and allow fuel to be stored in the can for several months. However, another way to store the fuel for prolonged periods is by rotating your supply. Buy several gas cans. Once a month, take and pour the oldest can of gas into your car's gas tank, then refill the can with fresh gasoline. By doing this, you will always have a supply of fresh fuel. First aid kit and medicines. Hospitals and other medical services are typically overrun with patients after any crisis. Many of those people are suffering from serious problems that require immediate attention. However, there are always those who are there for minor problems. If you have a good first aid kit, you can take care of your family's needs without going to the hospital. If you have anyone in your family who regularly needs medicine, keep a stock of their prescription. These over-the-counter medicines may not be readily available in an emergency.